pre.
Are you ready, Ryan? Or okay.
Yeah, a little pre-deal about.
Yeah.
Well, as Charles says, we didn't call him Tex, like they did in California. When he was here, he was just Charles Watson.
Charles.
Yeah, and then he grew up in Cokeville. His parents had a store over there, and he was the nephew of the sheriff of Collin County at that time, and he went to school in Farmersville. He was a pretty outstanding student and all, and played football and all this other. Yeah, that's his picture of his store.
That's the store his parents owned?
Yeah, yeah. Right there it was.
This, in fact, Bobby, this picture was made December 2nd, 1969, the day Charles was arrested.
Indicted and all.
Gas was
27 cents a gallon.
But did you ever yourself go here?
Yeah, I've been there several times and all. I knew his parents and all because I'd been in business in Wiley, and they'd all done business with them and all. They'd been in the shop, or customers of the shop and all.
So that you're talking about the flower shop, the Wiley flower shop.
Yeah, Wiley flower shop is where I knew him from even before this occurred.
Mm-hmm.
And but he was an athlete there at Farmersville, and I guess as far as I know, from what I understand, he was a pretty good football player and all. And then after high school, he went to Denton, to North Texas for a while. And I think he got in a little trouble up there or something. And that's when he ended up in California.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, that's just and then.
I'll just give a little brief what we're talking about here. We're talking with RobertKing, Bobby King from Wiley, and we're talking about Charles Watson, who some people called him Tex, but he was convicted of murder in 71, which was probably the murder of the century at the time, they called it. It was a very famous murder called the Manson murders or the Tate LaBianca murders, and it just so happened that Charles Watson was the main killer, murderer in those murders, and he was from Collin County. And we have the privilege and the honor of someone right here in Wiley that went through that history. Bobby King was the jailer at the Collin County Jail, and that's why we're discussing with him today just a little history and what he remembers, and because Charles was held in McKinney for about 1 year until he was extradited to California to stand trial for the murder of those people, and then Bobby was actually subpoenaed out there to testify in the trial in Los Angeles in 1971, and is there, Bobby, is there anything that you remember, in your days of being, is there anything that sticks out in your mind that you remember about him at all, or?
Well, I primarily took care of him while he was until I left the sheriff's department. And even though after I left the sheriff's department, the day he left, he was extradited to California. I was there with him, and I did see him and did speak to him. And but while he was in custody there in town, and I pretty well was probably the main person that attended to him, and but he was in this deposition that the detectives from California came and discussed with me, with the district attorney. Tom Ryan was district attorney at that time, and he was the one that was taking the deposition and all.
Okay.
But with the detectives from California were there, and I've got a copy of the deposition that was taken. I'm keeping the original.
Yeah,
you can have the,
yeah.
And but I had this made this morning, and I had to dig this out of a cedar chest that had been there for, I guess, 35 years or more.
Well, yeah, it's nearly going on 50. It's getting close to 50.
Yeah, it's getting close to 50 and all. But I had to find this thing, and so that I'd have it and provide a copy of it for you.
Yes.
And but I did talk. I mean, I was primarily the overseer of him at that time while he was in the Collin County, and he and I would talk. I mean, because his desk, his cell was directly behind where my desk was sitting there at the jail, and
I've got some pictures, I think, of.
And but anytime he wanted something or he'd need some attention or something like that, he'd address me as Mr. King. He'd call me by first name or deputy or anything like that. He always referred to me as Mr. King, and I would always. And he would have some request that maybe he'd want to go to the groceries, something from the store or something, but he did have, in his cell, his parents would come about twice a week, either his mother or father, and occasionally his sister would come, and they'd bring him what he needed. I mean, toiletries and things like that, and occasionally they'd bring him some food, such as juice or fruit or something that I'd allow him or any other prisoner to have. I mean, and he had his clothes. They'd bring him clean clothes every time they'd come, and so he'd change, and sometimes he'd change twice a day, but he did have about 3 or 4 shirts and maybe a couple of extra pair of trousers or something that they'd taken laundry for him and bring them back, but as I said, he and I talk occasionally, maybe not necessarily. We never did talk about
the case
or anything.
Never brought that up.
No, he never brought that up, except one time he did. We were talking, and he did state that he knew he was going to hell for what he had done, and but that's the only time that he had even indicated anything.
And of course, at this time, you were 35, 36 years old.
Yeah.
And he was 20, 22.
He was in his 22, 23 years old.
Yeah.
But,
This is some pictures of the old prison. There's the front.
There's the county jail, the front of it. And
I think that's the kitchen, Bobby.
Yeah, that's the kitchen. That's where had the lady that would come in and fix their breakfast for them every morning for the prisoners and all. And make sandwiches for the prisoners during the.
Was he free to
No, he
walk
was not
around
free. No, he
in
was,
the prison? No,
no, he was always in a cell,
always in a cell.
in an individual cell by himself. No one with him or anything else. But we would, when his parents would come.
They would go up these stairs, I hear.
Yeah, they would go up there. They would go up first to the sheriff's office, which was located upstairs, and then I would unlock the cell, take him upstairs, and put him in the room with his parents, and they would visit. Mm-hmm. Maybe they'd probably have a little longer visitation than most of them, but since.
Well, he was the cousin of the sheriff.
No, he was a nephew.
Nephew.
He was a nephew. Mrs. Watson was the sheriff's sister.
Oh, okay.
And so he got a little more consideration and privileges than some of the other prisoners. But because when the others would have visitors or something like that, they didn't have a private room to meet in or anything.
And at that time, that was the Collin County Jail.
That was the Collin, well, actually, it said Collin County Prison.
Prison.
It's what was up on the letters in front of it.
Yeah. And were there, so there were more than maybe 4 or 5, or were there 20, or how many prisoners usually did y'all have?
Well, we usually had anywhere from, I'd say 10 to 15.
Oh, okay.
That's about all there was. And they were all upstairs in a cell, what you call a cell block, and there'd be maybe two individual cell upstairs. And then on the 3rd floor, there was just a big open room where a runaround where they could just move around.
Oh, I see.
And everything. And
so there wasn't an outside area for
no,
him?
there was nothing outside.
Okay.
It was all on the inside.
But his cell was downstairs, right?
Yeah, his cell was downstairs, which was there was 1, 2, 3. There were 3 cells. Downstairs. Well, there was actually 4, but we used one for a storage area. Mm-hmm. And occasionally, when we'd have juveniles or female prisoners come in, they would we'd keep them separate from the other prisoners, and that's where we would have them. And as I said, this deposition is what they asked for, and then in 71, that I had to go. I was subpoenaed to go to California, and I did testify on in his trial. And at that time, Charles Manson was upstairs on another floor. His trial was being conducted at the same time. And as you would go in the courthouse, there would be some of Manson's followers out front demonstrating.
Oh, you saw some of them?
Yeah, I saw some of them, and as a matter of fact, one of the followers of his was on the plane with me going back. Did nobody else know it, but
but you
but I did. But I knew she was on the plane and all, but I didn't talk to her. She was going to New York or somewhere like that, somewhere in the Northeast.
Yeah.
But she had been a witness or give testimony in the case also.
I think I read in the newspapers that you testified about maybe the same day as maybe Texas' girlfriend from here in Texas testified.
I don't remember
You
which
don't
one it
remember?
was.
Okay.
Because when you was out there, you didn't see who the other witnesses were or anything.
Now, was he the prosecutor? Vincent Bugliosi, do you remember him?
Bugliosi, he wasn't a prosecutor. I think he was the defense attorney.
Okay.
Wasn't he the defense attorney or one of them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He would have been the prosecutor.
Yeah, he might have been the prosecutor, and then they had the other well-known attorney out there. But
so you weren't there for the verdict. You were just there.
No, I was just there that one day.
One day.
And I flew back I flew out that morning and flew out the next day.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that story again about flying back.
Yeah, well, I was flying back. I mean, I had an opportunity to stay out there overnight and come back the next morning, or I could fly on that new 747 jet airliner. And I said, I'll just take that airliner home and all. And while we were on there, on the way back, I guess hit a little turbulence or something, and it sort of rattled the airplane a little, and I heard some engineers back at the back saying, wonder what that was. That sounds like it's trouble or something. They said, don't knock it. We're the engineers on that airplane.
Huh.
And so I do recall them.
Did you get to go up in the spiral?
No, I had my
You had
just a regular seat and all on it. And
but I remember that. I'm old enough to remember when those came out, and that was big
yeah,
news.
it was a big deal. And I mean, I decided I'd come back ride on that big 747 instead of the next day.
So needless to say, that was a long day for you.
Yeah, it was.
How long were you on the witness stand?
Oh, I'd say not more than 10 or 15 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Because they primarily they went over what the same thing is in that deposition and all.
Yeah.
They were probably reading. Well, Tom Ryan, the district attorney from Collin County, he was asking the questions on this. And
was Martha able to go with you, or
no,
just you by
just
yourself?
Me.
Okay.
I was the only person from Collin County out there with the sheriff's department or the courts or anything from Collin County. It sort of irritated some of the others because I was the one that selected instead of the chief deputy and maybe the detective from Collin County with the sheriff's office.
So you were there, but you were there with him.
Yeah,
you were there every day, right?
Yeah, I was probably there every day with him.
Mm-hmm. And that was probably an 8-hour. Was that probably?
No, it was a lot longer than that. We went to work at 6 and got off at 6. That's
really?
Back when they'd work about 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, and they make a whole lot more money now than they did then, and they don't have near the only thing about it with they did have insurance. We did have insurance and everything, but otherwise it was back almost 50 years ago since.
So you would drive from Wiley up there and back every day?
Yeah.
I'll be.
And it didn't take that time of day, and with the traffic and all, that time of the, it didn't take maybe 30, 45 minutes to get there. I remember one time I was going back. That's when they had the tornado that came through Plano and tore up a lot of things over there, and it came all the way up Parker Road, probably right through there where you lived.
Yep.
And it came over and hit the house next door to me, and I just got this office, And my wife called, said, "You better come home. We've had a tornado here." And apparently, I had driven through that thing. And
that was on Linda Lane. Were you living out?
yeah, I
on the
lived
lake?
on Linda Lane, but I was going probably up there on Parker Road.
Yeah.
1378, about that time when that thing came through there. And I noticed the weather, I mean the wind and the rain and all, but I didn't know we had a tornado.
There was some things I've heard that Tex was allowed to have a TV and a radio and things like that. He was allowed to watch TV.
He did have his TV and he had a radio and a record player, and then he would get a newspaper every now and then. His parents would bring him the Dallas newspapers, and then he'd also McKinney had a newspaper at that time. He'd ask for it, and we'd give it to him. So but as I said, he had his TV in there, small TV, and I don't know whether I guess he watched the news on it too. But by that time, this thing had occurred, and it was all pretty well out of the news media at that time. I mean, the actual murders and things like that happened in California. But he did have access to the news media and all.
In your days, Bobby, did you get to develop any kind of an opinion as to how because I knew that if I'm not mistaken, his mother and father, to the day they died, did not believe he.
Well, no, he was pretty well convicted.
Yeah.
I mean, had the evidence on him and everything, and from what he never did discuss it except that one time that he did talk to me about. He knew he was going to go to hell for what he had done, but that was the only thing that was ever mentioned about the crime out there in California.
Yeah, because everybody that talked about him, from what I've read, he was a golden child growing up.
He was. And even when I had him in custody, he was a more exceptional, ideal prisoner.
Really?
Because he was respectful to everybody, and he was neat, and he kept things clean. I'd go in, and usually when his parents would come and he'd go upstairs to visit with them, that's when we'd go in and clean his cell. I'd have his trustees go in, clean his cell, and I'd check things out. Make sure he didn't have anything that he shouldn't have had. Maybe he shouldn't have had some of that other stuff, but under the circumstances, he did.
So there were never any violations that he.
No, there was not. He give nobody any trouble or no back talk or anything like that. He was always polite.
Did you ever have any conversations with his attorney, Bill Boyd?
Oh yeah, Bill was. He fought that extradition pretty hard and all. But the Boyds and the Montgomerys and all, his father, which was Roland Boyd, he had been the district attorney before him, and they all grew up over around Nevada, Cokeville, Lavon, and the Boyds and the Montgomerys and all were all pretty closely knit over there. So he fought pretty hard for him. And
there's still some Montgomerys out there in Lavon.
Oh yeah, there's Montgomerys. I knew he had a.
Raymond, I knew Raymond. Montgomery.
Yeah, Raymond Montgomery, Raymond, and that was a brother of Tom and all. And then Miss Ethel Cox, she was a sister, and she lived in Wiley. And as a matter of fact, I rented a house from them when I first got married. From the Coxes. They'd built a new house over Coalfield, and I'd just been married about 4 or 5 months and living in Garland, and they sent word to me they wanted to rent me their house. They wanted me to have that rent their house, which was a nice house. It was just a 2-bedroom, but nice. It's located on the corner of Oak and 5th. Right there on that corner of Oak and 5th. And but it was they called me and they said, we'll rent it to you. I said, rent a small house in Garland. They said, we'll rent it to you at the same price you had, because they wanted my wife and I to have that house, be in that house.
And so at one time, I think I read about you. You were one of the only people in the state to be a registered police officer and a justice of the peace.
Yes, I was. At that time, in 1970, I went to work 69, 70. I ran for the Office of Justice of the Peace in the primaries, and there were just 3 people in the Democratic primary. And back then, they didn't have any Republicans in town. In the southeast part of Collin County, and because you couldn't even vote Republican in Wiley, you had to go to Farmersville or somewhere if you wanted, or Plano, and you go on the voting precinct they had over there for the Republicans. It was all Democrat.
All Democrat. Yeah.
And but at that time I won the primary over the other 2 candidates. I had the majority of the votes, and all, so there was no runoff or anything. And then I was appointed at that time. The present Justice of the Peace, he resigned, and then the county commissioners and all appointed me as Justice of the Peace, and then I took over that office, and that's when I was actually, when the day at the time he left, was extradited to California, I was the Justice of the Peace, but I happened to be at the sheriff's office that day, and when he was being extradited.
The sheriff's office was in the prison?
Yeah, it was in the
Collin?
Well, yeah.
Or was it in the courthouse?
No, it was in the
prison.
Yeah, it was in the prison. It was
because he lived there, right? Didn't Tom Montgomery? Didn't he live in the?
No, he did not.
Okay.
He lived over on the west side of. When he was elected sheriff, he moved over there, but he had primarily lived in Princeton.
Oh, okay.
And he was a big farmer over there and landowner.
Oh, okay.
And he's pretty well known throughout the county.
Yeah.
And
At the time that these murders happened and that you were in charge of Tex, did you have any idea in your mind how big this was? How?
Oh yeah, I knew. Because it had already. Once they connected him to it, it was all news media, and they're talking about the trial and all. Even before that, it was all in the news, and and you pretty well. Being in law enforcement and at that time, you pretty well kept abreast of what was happening, not only statewide but nationally and all. As something happened somewhere else, you pretty well.
It was probably the first trial that brought national attention, like the O.J. trial. O.J. Simpson was probably the next trial that it was that big.
It was that big. I mean, everybody was interested in the trial and as to what the outcome would be because of Manson and his followers that demonstrate all out in front of the courthouse and all. And it was pretty well covered by the news media.
I wonder what the thing was that triggered him. Do you think it was drugs? Do you think it was, what do you think in your mind would have triggered?
I think it was probably him getting in trouble. And then he went to California and then he got involved with maybe drugs, marijuana or LSD or whatever the popular narcotic was at that time, and then he got involved with Manson, and from what I understand, Manson could pretty well be persuasive of convincing anyone or some people to follow him and all, and I think it fell right in with that. He fell right in with that bunch, even though he was, when he probably went to California, he probably got on these drugs and narcotics and things like that probably pushed him towards Manson. But while he was before, even though he got in some trouble here in town, I mean here in Collin County or Denton County. I think he had a little problem with Collin County too, but a lot of people don't realize that I think when he was right out of high school or something, he and a couple of his buddies broke into Farmersville High School and stole some typewriters. And all, which wouldn't do him any good now. They don't use typewriters.
No.
And he tried to hawk them or something, and he got caught on it, but there was no criminal charges against him or anything, I don't think, at that time. Then he went to North Texas and enrolled in college, and up there, I don't know what the incident was up there. That's where he got his fingerprints.
Oh, okay.
He did something, and because of law enforcement, to take his fingerprints, and that's how they connected him to the murders in California, because they had a fingerprint of him, and then through the criminal database, they traced it back to him. It took them a while, but back then it wasn't just instantly.
Yeah, that's all we had was fingerprints. And
That's all. They didn't have the DNA or anything like that. But probably if they'd had the DNA, they could have connected him quicker. But they'd had to have something from to have a suspicion of him doing it if it had the DNA, but they had the fingerprint on him.
Well, to this day, he still sits in California prison.
He still sits in California. I think he has made a preacher. He's become a minister, and he's married. And I know here this past year that he was up for parole or something, but the state denied that on him. Yeah. And I do recall that was in the news or something this past year or so.
Yeah, he was allowed to get married, and he was also allowed to father children while he was in prison. Mm-hmm. He's got 4 children while married, and no longer are prisoners allowed to do that anymore, to have conjugal visits. But he was originally sentenced to death.
Yeah, and
then a year later, California abolished the death penalty, or maybe 2 years later, and then he was given mandatory life sentence.
And then, but then this past year or so, I think he came up possibly for parole or something, but the state denied him. And, so he's still sitting out there in prison.
He's never tried to contact you, has he?
No, I've never heard from him since.
Yeah. You know, there's some tapes that were recorded. Bill Boyd recorded some audio tapes with him in right after the murders, and wanted to get Charles's complete testimony. And those tapes came up in a legal battle in Collin County about 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And finally, the police, the LA, were able to take these tapes, because Bill Boyd had them. And of course, Bill Boyd has passed.
Yeah, he died here 2 or 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
And but I didn't know of the tapes, but I assumed that he had tapes, because he would, as being any private attorney or anything like that, he would record any testimony or anything from his clients or something.
Mm-hmm.
But he never did. I didn't know of any tapes or anything.
Yeah, I think the LAPD has them now, but they haven't discussed what's on them or.
I don't know whether he ever admitted he did anything or not.
I don't know. I think he did.
Yeah, he probably did admit it to Bill Boyd, his attorney at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But as any defense attorney, they'll fight fight for their clients. That's what they're supposed to do. Even though they may know they're guilty of the crime but they'll still defend him to the best of their ability.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill did a good job. He kept him here a long time.
He did. 1 year. Yeah. 1 year.
Kept him from being sent back out there. But that was primarily just to keep
let the others go first.
Yeah, let the trial get out of people's memory and everything for a while. But
do you think he'll ever be released?
I doubt it.
Yeah. I don't know.
Because California was not going to let him do it, because it was such and the people that the LaBanca and the Tate murders were pretty big headlines at that time, and so I doubt very seriously if he'll ever be released. But nowadays you could.
I was wondering also, did Tex ever mention anything about the Beach Boys, meeting them and hanging out with them? Because him and Charles Manson both got tied up with Dennis Wilson and the Beach Boys, and stayed at his house and brought those girls. He never said anything.
He
about
never
that?
did mention anything about. Well, he didn't mention anything about what happened in California or while he was out there or anything.
Yeah.
And I never did question him about it.
Right. Yeah.
Because it was.
You weren't.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. Didn't involve Collin County at that time, other than being held here. I mean, the trial or guilt or innocence of him had nothing to do with But other than that one time when he said he thought he'd go to hell for what he had done. And but he didn't admit to anything.
Did you have any response to him about that?
No,
No.
I didn't. Because I didn't.
Yeah.
But it was just in a casual conversation, and we were talking. I don't know about what we were talking about or anything else, but he just casually mentioned that he thought he knew he was going to go to hell for what he had done. But that's the only thing he had ever admitted to, or said it mentioned anything about what he had done out there. But that's about all that I can tell you on it.
Okay.
As I said, you've got a copy of the deposition that
Well, I sure appreciate that, Bob.
I had to give to him.
You know, the 50-year anniversary of that murder and trial is coming up, or the murders are, and every even annually they have a big TV specials about it.
They have a special that's Helter Skelter.
Yeah.
That they come up with that phrase that they
wrote on the walls.
Wrote on the walls in blood and all, in the victims' bloods and all that.
But I'm surprised some of these researchers, and there's a bunch of them out there, fanatics, almost, well, more so than I am. I'm just interested in the Collin County aspect of it, where we fit in, and I know you're probably the only one now left that had anything to do with that trial, because you were in such a key role with him. But I'm surprised they haven't contacted you to ask you and since you were there with him every day. But I mean, it's very simple that you just basically saw a normal guy that he went through his normal daily activities and wasn't anything out of the ordinary.
It wasn't
Charles.
anything. No, he was, as I said, he was as polite, and you couldn't have asked for a better prisoner or somebody in custody to act at that time. Because he usually shaved most every day, and occasionally he'd have maybe a 2 or 3 day beard or something when his parents wasn't going to show. He had to make an appearance for them, apparently. And,
they were pretty strict from what I understand.
Yeah, they were strict on him, but I don't know. Other than that, there was something that some news media or somebody was researching this before that contacted me on it, but they never did follow up on it. They called me to know if I was that person, the person that was involved in this. And they said, well, we'd like to talk to you, but I never did talk to anybody. But as I said, this thing has been stuck away for all those years. I had to go through and find it, because I knew I had it somewhere. And I've never shown it to anybody, really.
Well, I appreciate you making me a copy of it, and
it's pretty lengthy.
Yeah.
It's got, I think,
that's your testimony.
Yeah, that's primarily what they asked me in California as to what was covered in that.
Okay, well,
You got any questions?
No, I just appreciate you coming in and sharing your story with us.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to maybe do a little research on it or something like that. Apparently you've done quite a bit of
I have,
research
yeah.
on it. And,
I have.
And then,
Well, I was about 10 or 12 when it happened.
yeah,
And I remember the news and then I remember the movie Helter Skelter coming out, and then, and then all of a sudden here was this kid from Collin County that was involved in this, and, he's 70 years old now.
yeah,
But it just, it's, what I found, if people in Farmersville and Cokeville they really don't like to talk about it much.
no, they don't. That's just like me. I don't talk about
Yeah.
it. People will ask me about
Yeah.
it, and I say, no. I'll just make a comment on it, and that's it.
Yeah. Because it's not it's not a good...
It's, it don't reflect too good on Collin County.
No.
Just like the other deal here that happened in Wiley years later, that people don't talk about that much. They asked me about it, but I wasn't involved in that too much, but I did know about it. And all.
You were here.
Yeah, I was here,
Yeah.
and that's when, before they ever found out who did it and all, they thought there was a mass murderer roaming the country and all. As a matter of fact, I come in the back door of the shop and it was locked one day. It was right after they'd found the body and all, and word had got around it, what had happened and all. And I come in the shop and the door was locked. And they say, what's the password? I said, I didn't know anything had happened. I said, God, open this damn door. That was even before I'd been out of town or something.
Do you know what he's talking about, Randall?
Yeah, this axe murder.
Axe murder, yeah.
Montgomery. Her name was Montgomery too?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. But I don't know, there was no relation whatsoever, and this was the Betty Gore deal here in town.
And that was that summer that it was 120 degrees every day.
Yeah, 1980 or
Yeah.
81 or something like that. I believe that's when it was.
Yeah.
That's been a long time ago
Yeah.
too. But sometimes, occasionally, somebody will ask me about it.
Mm-hmm.
But
you weren't with the Justice of the Peace thing. Yeah.
No. But I still was involved. I mean, I knew who all the officers were in the county and
Who
the
was
sheriff.
the chief then? What was his name?
O.C. Blanks.
O.C. Blanks. Was that it?
Yeah,
Had that mustache?
No, I don't think he had a mustache.
No?
I think O.C. was the chief here.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, he was the he was the lead detective there. Deputy sheriff.
It was Yeager. Was it Yeager or Richard Parker that found her?
It
body?
was Richard Parker.
Richard Parker.
Richard. And they live next door
Yeah.
and all.
Okay.
And Yeager, I don't know whether John, he lived on down the street a ways, I think.
Okay.
But Richard lived next door.
Mm-hmm.
And then Gaylor, he lived on the other side of him, I think. Robert Lester Gaylor.
But the husband called Richard to go look and see.
Yeah, check on his wife and kids.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because his kids were in Sunday school, in Bible school, I think, at that time. They're in Lucas, at the church in Lucas, and I think Candace Montgomery was a teacher or something there, and she was having an affair with
Alan Gore.
Alan Gore.
Yeah.
But I still, at that time, I was still friendly with all the police officers and everybody in the sheriff's office and the highway patrol and everybody and the Texas Rangers and everybody that got involved in that. And
well, the year I started teaching in Wiley, the seniors that I had that year in 1985 were in Betty's class when that happened.
Yeah.
It was in the summer when it happened, but
it was in the
they
summer.
they were graduating that year, so they had her as a teacher.
Yeah.
And
as a matter of fact, we'd gone to, they belonged to the Methodist Church in Wiley before, and then they transferred their membership to the Lucas Methodist Church. And they were attending church over there, but Alan and Betty, they did go to church at the Methodist Church here in Wiley for a time. And I was a member of the Methodist Church. And my wife and I, my family, were all members of the church here in town. But that's one other incident.
yeah, there's always
We had a police officer, City of Wiley police officer, shoot and kill a person from Wiley. Actually, they were from Wiley, but I think he was I won't say a hoodlum or anything, but I don't know. But he was but he got involved in a conflict with the police officer, and a police officer shot and killed him. And at that time, that was probably in the mid-70s or something like that.
Oh, really? So that was before I was living here.
Yeah.
Okay. Or before I was working here.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I would, I'm retired. I spent 30 years here, and you've seen how Wiley has changed.
Yeah, I moved to Wiley as a sophomore in 1951.
Really?
And I've been here ever since. And then I've been in business here in town, among other things, since 1961, when my wife and I bought the Wiley Flower Shop. And it's been 50-something years ago too. But I've seen a lot of changes in our area here. I mean, Wiley, I've got some ashtrays at home from the First State Bank in Wiley. It said, Fisherman's Paradise, Wiley, Collin County's fastest growing city. I took one of them up to the bank the other day, here a while back. I had a couple of them that people used ashtrays back in them days.
Yeah.
And everybody pretty well smoked. They'd have ashtrays around, sitting on tables and all, and the bank would give them away. And at that time, I had a couple of those ashtrays that said Wiley, Collin County's fastest growing city. But that was in the early 50s.
That's probably when Lake Levon was built, and they thought it was going to be the paradise.
It was.
Yeah,
it was. I was here when the Lake Levon, when they first opened it up. As a matter of fact, I used to go. We'd haul hay during the day, and at night we'd go out and swim in the basin below the dam at night. And when they had the ceremonial opening of the Levon Dam, I was junior in high school, and we went out and fed the dignitaries and all, state and national dignitaries, all. We fed the FFA department, fed them the barbecue. We served the barbecue to them, and we did get to meet Sam Rayburn.
Sam Rayburn. Yeah.
Sam Rayburn and Roland Boyd and all of them that were instrumental in getting the dam here and all.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was a huge day in Wiley there then for sure too.
Yeah, I mean we had all the Congressman Sam Rayburn and the governor, Lieutenant Governor. I don't think the governor ever showed up, but had the Lieutenant Governors, a lot of state officials, and from the Corps of Engineers and all that were there, and we did have they did call on us on the FFA Department Chapter 2, feed them their barbecue, we'd serve them their meals during the day, and listen to their speeches. Back then, as a 17-year-old kid, we weren't interested in speeches too much. We were ready to get them out of there and hit that basin.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. But I've seen a lot of changes.
Yeah. Well, that old lake is, you know, my wife works for the water district and has for 25 years now, and
North Texas.
Yeah. Now we're piping in water from Texoma and
Cooper,
and
anywhere else we can get it.
Yeah, so we don't run out.
But I live out there.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I connect on two sides with the government property out there. But all the darn trees have grown up so high I can't see the lake anymore from my front porch. I used to sit on the front porch and I could look all the way across the lake, see those bridges on the other side of between Lucas and Cullioke. Their branch.
You could see all those.
I could see all of those bridges. And now then you can't see nothing.
Yeah.
All the trees have grown up. But
well, at least our water's back up.
Yeah, we've got the water out there now, and I can, when I'm driving home of an afternoon or something, I can look through the trees and I can see where the water is. I can pretty well tell where the level is on it, and it's still up a little, I think.
Yeah. Bobby, I sure appreciate you coming and sharing some history with us today.
Yeah, well, I'm just happy to do it.
Well,
it's something that we need to know about. I mean, some people, not necessarily this, but what other things had happened.
Yeah.
Because I was here when Highway 78 came all the way through Wiley at that time. I think they finished it 57.
57
is when the highway came through, because I got married in 56, and we'd still come to Wiley, but from Wiley to Hooper Lane, it had it opened. Well, it wasn't opened, it wasn't finished, but you go around the barricades, and Martha's parents lived there on Hooper Lane.
Oh.
And so I cut around my barricades and come out in. It was a good straight stretch through there.
Huh.
Instead of all that old 78, old Saxon Road from there, it had so many good turns in it. But I've seen a lot of changes.
Yeah.
School system,
Yeah.
where we had one school at the elementary school and the high school. Everybody, I mean, the elementary from first grade all the way up to 8th grade went to elementary, and then the high school had 4 years there. And the old Wiley High School, the one I graduated from, it was called T.F. Birmingham High School, is what the name of it was. Because Birmingham had donated all this property around here, all the land, and helped build a school and all. But it was had up on it. Didn't have Wiley High School. It had T.F. Birmingham High School. That's what the name of it was. But I even run across, when I was looking this deposition up, I even run across my old graduate diploma, and it had Wiley High School on it though. But at that time, even though
That building doesn't stand anymore.
no, it's there where Hartman
Yeah.
is now,
Yeah.
about where Hartman is. But the old building was there, and the football field was where the bank is now, or Sonic. About
Yeah.
where Sonic is.
Yeah.
It run through, and the railroad come through town, and there was that was before the highway came in. There was just a dirt road at the end of the ball field. It went around from where the school was all the way. It went all the way around along the railroad up back to Birmingham, I guess. But it's now then we've got 3 high schools, 2 high schools, and probably looking at another one before long, and about 18 or 19 other schools here in town. I think it's a total of 18 schools, and probably 19 including Bush, which that's a sour note on me, because I didn't like the name of Bush being on it.
What was it? Why was it? Who was it named for? Who was it named
George
for?
W. Bush. And I mean, the rest of the schools in town are named after people
Right.
from Wiley.
Yeah.
And they could have named it something other than George Bush.
Yeah.
Even though I have nothing against George Bush.
Do we have a Bobby or Martha King Elementary yet?
No, not yet.
We don't?
Not
And
yet.
they named one after.
They've named them after everybody else. Wally Watkins, Sewell, Tibbles, Draper, and Hartman, and Macmillan, and Davis, and they're all local people.
Yeah.
Groves, Roddy Groves.
Roddy Groves, yeah.
Yeah, he was
Oh, yeah.
a good man.
Yeah.
But we've had so many people. Well, I'm through with you.
Okay. I'm done.